Jeff Lurie, no show at the Eagles-Browns game. That doesn't happen. What's the message there? Jason Peters moving over to guard. Carson Wentz looking over his shoulder. Reports that you're going to see more of Hurts tonight. Let's bring in Sal Paolantonio and get his thoughts on what has gone on over the last few days up at the NovaCare complex, Sal, because it seems that there's just more than a football game happening around this organization currently. This is kind of a defining moment for the franchise tonight.
When Mike Gill makes the call to come on the show 5 days early on a special Sal Pal Monday, I make the call to come on the Mike Gill show. Got to happen. And let me tell you this, it's so kind of funny in a small way because, you always have family drama around the holidays, right? and this team has got some family drama. I mean, they got it up and down the lineup. They got it in the organization, in the locker room, on the field. Could you have any more family drama than the Philadelphia Eagles have right now, Michael?
No, and, the owner, you would know this better than most. I mean, he travels to every game since he's been the owner of this team going back to the Ray Rhodes era, and he just randomly decides, I've had enough, I'm not going. I mean, there has to be more to this story, it seems like.
Well, let's parse it out. Because Jeff McClain from my old newspaper, the Philadelphia Inquirer, he has my old job. He's the beat writer. He's the one who reported it. He's a good reporter, and I'm gonna take that report with a lot of grain of salt in terms of whether it's true or not. But the bottom line is, there's got to be something to it. I know the team has come out and said that Jeffrey Lurie, out of abundance of caution, didn't want to be around his team and vice versa because he was going to see his mother up in Massachusetts for the holidays. I get it. But it seems to me, he in the end, it sounds like he's frustrated with the team. And, well, he should be. Now, should that be his reaction? Of course not. To miss a game? You can't be a no-show as a Philadelphia Eagles fan. That's just the antithesis of what you do as a football fan in Philadelphia. It just can't happen. I was kind of shocked when I heard it. I really was.
Yeah, I mean, it's like how, to the average fan, it's like, okay, the owner didn't go to the game. Does he go all the time? Is this a huge situation that he's not there? I mean, I think Lurie's at every single game. So is it?
It's a shock. It's a shock that he didn't show up and that he made an excuse for it. After Jeff McClain reported that, tells me that they were stung by the criticism that came out on social media afterwards. I mean, you just don't do that as an Eagles fan. Just imagine if Jerry Jones did it, how he would be excoriated in Dallas.
Right.
Or John Mara,
Yeah.
In New York. It would be a story that would be on the back page of the Daily News and the Post. Frankly, I'm shocked that more people haven't made a big deal about it because it's a very big deal. And the next time Jeff Lurie has a press conference at the end of the season, he certainly will be asked about it. And, Mike, I'm just going to volunteer this. I know it's coming out of left field, but as you know, I'm very close to Doug. And, I've always been a big supporter of what he does, but I don't think he survives a 3-win season. I don't think he survives a 4-win season based on what I'm hearing now.
That would be big, and that's why I want to get into this next question is this, maybe the Lurie story doesn't get a lot of steam because Jalen Hurts is getting more snaps, and there's some anticipation that he might play more tonight, which I would imagine, look, if Doug Peterson was in a situation – if Carson Wentz was playing this poorly, Doug Peterson or any coach probably would have benched him by now. The contract says you can't do it. So why now would he play Jalen Hurts more snaps if that's accurate?
Yeah, the contract says you can't do it long term. But as you and I have discussed on your show, it was time to hit the reset button with Carson Wentz. If Donovan McNabb could get benched in 2008 in Baltimore, and then it hit the reset button for him, and he went on and went to the playoffs and had a pretty good end of the season. Carson Wentz could get benched by Doug Peterson for Jalen Hurts. I mean, Kevin Kolb is not that much better than Jalen Hurts, and vice versa. So the alternative isn't great. I get it. But sometimes you have to, as Andy Reid said when he benched Donovan McNabb, you have to go back an inch to go a mile ahead. And I think Carson Wentz, if he were sat, he would get a different perspective. It also sends a great message to the team. Doug Peterson said it sends the wrong message to the team to bench him. I totally disagree. I think it sends the right message to the team that every player has to be held accountable. Don't you?
But that's just I think we all agree with that. The problem is that's just not the way. That's not the culture of the league, right? You don't take your franchise guy and prove a point with them.
It's not about proving a point. It's about, okay, you bring him into the room, your office or Zoom or however you're doing things now, and you go one-on-one with him, and you say, Carson, here's what I see. I see a guy who's leading the league in turnovers. I see a guy who's leading in the league in sacks, and partially that's your problem. It's so obviously the fact that the offensive line is now in its 10th iteration in 12 games, but you're holding on to the ball. Here's receivers that are open. You're not seeing the field. You need to have a different perspective. I'm going to go this week with Jalen Hurts and see where it takes us.
I feel like the difference is, Sal, and I agree with you, what you're saying, is most quarterbacks that are getting paid what he's getting paid never put their coach or franchise in this predicament where they have to make this type of decision, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Once you pay that $130 million, that's the stamp of approval. That's the stamp of eternity. That's like, okay, we are married till death do us part.
Yeah.
That's it.
Which takes us back to the decision to bring the young kid in to begin with, and now what if he plays well? What if he plays well? How do you handle that? Okay, he drives down the field and looks smooth and scores a touchdown. It's not a huge sample size, but it's enough for people to say, look what this guy can do. Why would you do this to yourself?
Yeah, I think that's the least of your problems. If he comes in and plays well and the team wins, okay, God bless, Godspeed, and on to the next game. Carson Wentz's psyche, who cares? His ego does not come before the team. So I think that's the least of your problems. And by the way, I just want to remind you, you and I both of us said and agreed that giving Carson Wentz that enormous contract was a mistake. We said it way before they gave it to him. We were both on board saying, let's hold off and see what we have with this guy before we invest a Ryan Howard kind of contract in Carson Wentz.
Correct. Now, that goes into another situation, which is I thought Chris Long on his podcast brought up an interesting scenario in that he said the owner loves the quarterback, which means was the owner the guy who said, get that guy signed, I don't care what you do, because people want to yell at Howie and said, why would you give him that contract when he didn't need it? Did the owner say, I want that guy and I want him signed?
Well, if he did, it's dumb. You were negotiating against yourself. And Mike, let's be pretty clear about this. Everybody in the organization owns that decision. They all own it.
Yes.
They all talk about having a commonality of thought. They all talk about talking to one another before they make big decisions. They all talk about the fact that Peterson and Roseman and Lurie are on the same page, so they all own the decision. And there's no wiggle room out of that. They've all talked about how to get together. They were the ones that decided Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. They were the ones that talked about taking J.J. Arcega-Whiteside over D.K. Metcalf. They're the ones talking about taking Jalen Hurts in the second round when they had many, 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 many other needs.
Right, and I think that's interesting because so many people want to point the finger directly at the GM and say it's Howie Roseman's fault. But it sounds like he doesn't get autonomy to say, this is what I want to do.
Oh, gosh, no, absolutely. Now we're spending $130 million.
Right, and I don't know that anybody in the organization was against signing Carson Wentz. He had given you no reason to not want to do that. That's what makes it such a mind-boggling situation.
Let me give you this. Situation. Scenario A is Howie Roseman knocks on the door of Jeffrey Lurie's office and says, I just signed our quarterback to a $130 million contract that is going to cripple our salary cap for the next 5 years. And now I'm going to lunch. Or what's the next likely scenario? Knock, knock. Jeffrey Lurie, I'd like to sign Carson Wentz to a $130 million contract that's going to cripple our salary cap for the next 5 years, but I think it's worth it. Will you please sign off on this in writing? What's more likely?
I would imagine that the owner has to sign off on that.
And the head coach.
And the head coach, correct. Yeah, and look, Doug has handled this thing kind of bizarrely, the way he answers things, but I'm just used to him just being uncomfortable answering questions at this point. Or should I? Am I reading that wrong? Should I read into his unique way of answering some of these questions when he's pressed on the support for the quarterback?
I would use a different adjective than unique.
Which would be?
Pick one.
Sal Paolantonio here on the Sports Bash. We'll let everybody out there pick the adjective that they want to put in.
Yes. Why don't you do that as a poll for the next hour? Give us Sal Pal's adjective replacing Mike Gill's for unique. See what you come up with. There would be a good radio deal for you for the next hour. That would carry you through to 5 o'clock.
Yes, this season has been an adjective that's unquestionable. That this season has had an adjective. I just don't know which one is the right one to use for this season.
I don't know if you're watching. I don't know if you're watching NFL matchup this week. I'm sure you were because you're devoted to our show. But Greg Cosell goes on a 30-second soliloquy, 30 to 45 seconds, talking about how the Eagles don't use motion or reverses or screens or this, that, or the other thing for any kind of deception in their offense. And I said, well, I'm going to boil it down to 2 words, vanilla and static. And sometimes, the easiest descriptions are the best. Mike, can I have one wide receiver reverse option? Can I have one of those? Can I have one? I see them all the time. I saw them in Andy Reid's offense 3 or 4 times. They had 17 play-action passes yesterday in Tampa. The Chiefs had 17 play-action passes.
Well, I agree that I think Doug can do a better job with Carson, no question. But that being said, this offense has not changed a whole heck of a lot, and Carson's play has dropped so dramatically that I can't just say, man, the coach has to do a better job with the quarterback. Sure, he needs to do a better job, but if the quarterback can't complete a routine throw, you got bigger problems.
Oh, you definitely do. There's no question about it. When your quarterback leads the league in turnovers, it's the quarterback's fault. He has the ball in his hands. That's the bottom line.
So give me some thoughts tonight. Is this just a massacre? Is this the surprise that December Doug pops out because his back's to the wall? I mean, is this another Eagles-Seahawks game that just is, Seattle dominant?
Well, here's the problem with, is this another December to remember for Doug Peterson? What we like to say on the matchup show is that coaches coach against coaches, right? And the Seahawks, Pete Carroll, has owned Doug Peterson in the last 6 games. Russell Wilson has never lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles have given up 40 sacks because their offensive line is a mess. And Seattle's pass rush has 16 sacks in the last 4 games. That is where the game is going to be won or lost. Watch one player on defense, Carlos Dunlap. And if you watch him, you'll see how this offense is going to go for the Philadelphia Eagles. Dunlap has been a beast lately. They are blitzing more than they ever have. Seattle has abandoned the vanilla 4-man rush and playing a lot of coverage behind it. They are just basically coming after the quarterback. They don't care. They now have the lead in the NFC West, and they're determined to hold on to it. Last 2 times they came into Philadelphia, into South Philly last year, the Eagles averaged 9 points per game, did not crack 20 points in 2 games. And one of those games was with a totally healthy Carson Wentz, and an offense that was actually pretty good, if you remember. And then he got hurt in the wild card game, and the result was exactly the same, 17-9 in both games. So you used the word massacre, right?
Well, the last time I saw a Monday night game, Eagles-Seahawks, they retired Reggie's jersey. It was 42-0. That's a massacre,
okay.
Right?
I don't expect a massacre tonight. I don't expect a massacre tonight, but the Seahawks are favored by 6 now, and that's just late money on the Eagles. I just, for the life of me, I don't see how the Eagles win this game or the next game in Green Bay. Anybody who watched the Packers against the Bears, which was hopelessness for the Bears, and then the Saints. So the next 3 games, I don't see them winning any of them.
And they got Arizona after that. Arizona's no fun.
Arizona is no fun. It's a winnable game.
Yes.
It's a winnable game. But, the most important thing is somehow the only way you salvage any pride or anything left in the season is to somehow win this division. And now with Daniel Jones with a bad hamstring, and pull up Washington's schedule, it's a bear. It's worse than the Eagles.
Well, at this point, it's a battle of attrition. It's a battle of attrition. We don't know about Daniel Jones.
I'm going to use a different word. You're asking me about words. I'm going to say it's a battle of survivability. Survival. Who's going to survive? That's it.
Oh, man. This has been brutal. I hope
but it's interesting.
It is.
You know what? It is. It is brutal. But I think at this point, Eagles fans want to know what's going to happen next and how it's going to happen. I think there's an intriguing aspect to this. Like we've said, it is a bad division, but it's a great story now because there are a lot of people invested heavily in these teams. 1. 2, the NBA is not coming to the rescue until December 22nd. So we're locked in next 3 weeks. And then the most intriguing thing is, and get Jalen Hurts on the field and leave him there. When, Mike, and you've watched a lot of football in your career, and as a person, as a football fan, when has ever a 2-quarterback situation ever worked, ever?
We had Jaws on about an hour ago, and he said it was terrible. I hate it. I had to watch over my shoulder waiting for Randall to come in the game. He said it was terrible.
Well, Jaws would know better than anybody because, he was put through that. But go down through the history of the league. 2-quarterback situations never work. It's not good for the quarterback. It's not good for the team. Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz could be 2 more diametrically opposed in style and personality. It's not good for anybody. The only thing it's good for is the TV ratings because you're like, okay, what's going to happen next?
I'll tell you, I was supposed to be off today, and I said I can't miss this. Right? I was in your neck of the woods. Oswego. You went to SUNY, not Oswego, but
I went to Oneonta. Oswego's way up there, brother. That's a schlep and a half.
Yeah, I was up there, and I said I got in the car last night at 7:00, and I said, Sal, I'm coming home.
And I remember getting the email, and I was like, well, Michael, I'll wait till Friday. And you said, no, I'm coming home. I'm getting on the air. And I'm like, thank God.
Yes, I did. I got in the car. I got home at about 12:30 last night, and I got ready for today's show. I said, Jaws at 2:30, Sal Pao at 3. This is going to be a fun day, and it's been interesting. It's been unique.
Well, you are a perfect prime example, right? All right, it's hard to stay away from this thing. It draws you back in. You feel like Godfather 3.
I have 6 weeks vacation. I haven't been able to use anything because the stories just keep coming. I can't get away from them.
No, of course not. That's why I'm saying people are glued to this thing. They want to see how it's going to play out.
Your colleague, Louis Riddick, said this morning, this is a mess in Philly. It's a total mess because of the salary cap. The cap's going to go down if Wentz doesn't play well, if Hurts does play well. He says, I wouldn't want to be the decision maker on that in that organization.
Right, and why would you want to be the head coach going forward either?
Well, that's a whole nother story that maybe tomorrow we might have more to add. Sal Pal, it's the Griner team and Berger Realty in Ocean City for all your real estate needs. They have very kindly brought us Sal Paolantonio here to the Sports Bash. And, of course, are you working tonight? You roaming the sides?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm definitely working. Thank you to Johnny G. Hope everybody down there in OC had a good Thanksgiving, healthy and safe. And, we'll talk to you on Friday.
Sal Pal Friday will be here. We will talk about this game, and then, of course, they have the Packers. He's Sal Paolantonio. Hopefully you had a great Thanksgiving, and, stay warm tonight.
Okay, brother.
It's a messy day out there. Sal Paolantonio here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. He, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.